So I'm going to introduce our second whiskey maker, who is Dhavall. Hi.
Hi, Becky. Hello. Hello,
Hi,
everyone.
Dhavall. Whereabouts are you right now?
I live in Edinburgh, so I'm under lockdown at the moment. So I'm trying my best to work from home as much as I can. But for those of you who don't know, the distillery is based in Lake District, English Lake District. We are around 15-20 minutes from Keswick, the famous tourist destination in Lake District. Just to give you an idea about the distillery was founded and we started distilling in 2015. And we are a single malt whiskey company. Even though we are in England, our style is very Scotch-like. But we have our own interpretation on certain processes. The way now I come from a brewing background and also a blending background at Macallan, so it's very, very wood forward, sherry-led, and it's jam-packed of flavor profiles and mostly dry fruits, sultanas, raisins, dark chocolate. Just to give you a little bit before we go into the whiskey side of things and tasting it, which I'm looking forward to it. I want to give you an idea about the distillery and what makes us unique, or what are the differences in the process that we have. So, like I said earlier, we follow the Scotch Whisky Association rules and regulations. So nothing different from a process perspective from Scotland, but then we have our own interpretations on how we do certain things. And we use unpeated malt, first of all, to start with. So everything we have been using from the very start has been unpeated. We have a clear wort. We currently produce two different types of new mix spirit. We have one type A and type B. Type A is our light to medium, fruity, estery, much more creamy, and type B is much more heavier profile, which has a bit more sulfur content, and it's mostly a component from blending. Even though, I'm a whiskey maker, but I'm a blender. So Lakes is a whiskey, single malt whiskey made by a blender. So you'll see all this blending concepts being used at different parts of the process. So first of all, for type A, our lighter new mix spirit, it's a clear wort, which gives us a lot of fruity character, more esters in the spirit. And fermentation is where I love changing things around. So we currently use 3 different yeast profiles. So one of the yeast is a classic M strain, which is, gives us the base. And the concept I borrowed from the perfume or fragrance industry is a flavor triangle. So for the new mix spirit, I kind of split it up into the top notes, middle notes, and the base notes. And for each of those areas, I have different yeast that give me those flavor characteristics. And one of the yeast that we also use is a heritage yeast, which was used in the Scotch whisky industry, but discontinued because the yields were very, very poor. So to give you an idea, a yield is how much alcohol you can produce per ton of barley. So if we use this heritage yeast, which was stopped being used in the industry, we get around 300 liters of alcohol compared to the standard 405 liters of alcohol. But it gives me that waxy character. It gives me a lot of creaminess and oiliness. So that creates sort of my base layer that I require in the new mix spirit. The middle layer is the classic M strain, which gives me the classic floral fruitiness, estery character. And the top layer is a French yeast that we use that gives us that quite top notes, a little bit fruity, a little bit more on the estery character, but more citrusy characters that gives me the top notes. Every time you know the new mix spirit, the first thing that comes out are the top notes. Now, what we do is we use 3 different yeast in different combinations during the whole week, and the entire spirit from that whole week is blended together based on my recipe to give me that flavor that I'm looking for in my type A spirit. And then comes the distillation part. The unique thing we have at Lakes is 2 different kinds of condensers after the stills. One is a stainless steel condenser and one is a copper condenser. So for our type A light new mix spirit, we use the copper. And for our slightly heavier type B, we use the stainless steel condenser. And then my area of study, I'm a student of maturation, and also very specific. Maturation is a very, very broad term, and you can spend a lifetime learning about it. But my whole area of study is sherry cask and sherry cask maturation. So this is my instrument of choice. This is where I play the tunes, and that's where we use different kinds of sherry cask. But the primary component that we use is Oloroso sherry, which is an industry standard, which gives me the backbone and the spirit, the structure. And then I use PX and Pheno cask to give me different layers and complexities that I require in the blend. But when I say I just use Oloroso cask, we have probably around 16 different types of Oloroso cask, different levels of fruitiness, different levels of spice, some more towards the ginger character, some more towards a dry fruit character. The other thing that we do after the new mix spirit is made, before cask filling, we also do very, very slow reduction. And this is the technique that I borrowed from the cognac or the brandy industry, where the new make spirit is reduced very, very slowly, rather than opening the tap up and reducing from 70% alcohol to the cask strength that the strength and the filling strength. We take it over time. So for example, on a typical process, it might be 5, 10, 15 minutes to reduce it all the way from 70. For us, our reduction is trickle reduction, which is around 8 liters per hour. So it is very, very slow reduction. And what I have found out is that by doing that, it allows us to create much more. It allows us to maintain the esters and flavors that we have created in the front of the process. And then in the maturation stage, again, borrowing from the cognac industry, the brandy industry, I follow élevage process. And élevage is more than just finishing a cask. So what I do is I'll start a process of whiskey with, let's say, an Oloroso cask. And it might have the ginger, the dry fruit character that I require, but I might need more mouthfeel. I need more creamy texture. Then I might move that liquid into PX casks that give me that character. And then I might move the entire thing into a French oak cask to give me the aromatic profile that I'm looking for. So that's the complicated process, but we like doing that because that gives us the character that I'm looking for. So now that
Dhavall, it sounds so intricate, your whole process. There is so much going on from this small distillery in the Lake District. That's the innovation that you've got going on. How many different types of spirit are you producing there? Is it just the one?
Right now, just 2 types of new make spirit, all single malt for lakes. But again, like I said, I'm a blender, so I love to blend things. So before I fill into the cask, I will blend type A, type B in different proportions. So basically, I'm blending even before the cask starts maturation. Most of the blending happens after the cask has been filled and after it's aged, and then you start blending. But I start my blending process way early. So rather than looking from front to end, what we did was the style that I love drinking and the style I love creating is sherry cask, very sherry, heavily sherry style. So I look at the style that we wanted to create at Lakes and then work backwards on what kind of new make spirit we require to match those casks rather than buying a cask to match the spirit. I hope that makes sense. So it's kind of taking the other approach. Like I said, today we'll be tasting the Lakes single malt Whiskymaker Reserve number 2.
Number 2.
And again, just to, sorry.
Talk us through it.
Yeah. So just one thing to clarify is this is cask strength whiskey. It's bottled at 60.9%, but I'll let you decide. When you nose it, you won't feel the alcoholic burn or strength. And that is the layering technique that you use in blending that allows you to create much more deeper flavors without having that hit on the nose. And the bottling, we also bottle at natural color. So we don't use any coloring whatsoever. So all the color that you see in the liquid is coming from those sherry casks. And also it is a non-chill filtered. So everything is non-chill filtered. At all the products at Lakes are non-chill filtered. Now about the whiskey, first of all, it's important to note that we used to have Whiskymaker's Reserve number 1. This is number 2. Again, this is not a batch process, so this is not batch 2 of our product. It is just a different style, different expression, different creative expression of the liquid. So the DNA between all the Whiskymaker's Reserve is the same. It is very, very, sherry-led, full of flavor, dry fruit characters, dark chocolate, but there are certain nuances. So the Whiskymaker 1 was much more on the face, much more bold. Number 2 is slightly more restrained, more elegant. It's supposed to be more comfortable in its place. Number 3 that's coming out is much more aromatic, much more seductive. However, the makeup moves around thing because I like to express different emotions through the language of whiskey. So that's the reason for having different styles of Whiskymaker Reserve. Now, Whiskymaker Reserve, so, it's, as I said, it's 60.9%. And it's a combination of PX cask, red wine cask, and just 1 or 2 bourbon casks that I like just to add a little bit of lightness, that vanilla and a little bit of tropical fruit character. That is, but it is sherry led. It's very, very heavily sherried. And lot of dry fruits on the palate, sultanas, dry figs, dates. You have, the nose has a lot of vanilla, toffee, a lot of chocolate texture. And one of the things that I like is a very long finish. I use a little bit of French oak in the whole makeup as well, that allows me to get that aromatic profile as well. So when you nose, and there are the spices, nutmeg, cinnamon, those coming out, those are coming out from the French oak component that is used in the part of the process.
Dhavall, it's an incredible whiskey. When you're using such when you're using casks with such a robust flavor profile, how do you prevent that from overwhelming such a young spirit that you're working with?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. And I think, and particularly one of the things about one of the casks, French oak, that's why it's used like, if you don't control the French oak, it can completely overpower the whiskey, make it very bitter and give it a lot of tannins. And that's why I keep on nosing all the casks. And, that's one of my jobs is thousands of casks. I have samples every week coming through. I keep a tab on all the liquid profile that is developing. And ultimately what I'm trying to find is the right peak of maturation where the extractives that I need from the cask are balanced by the distillery character and also by the oxidation. And when I think it's right, I try to blend it out. But the blending process for me, it's a much more longer process. It can take probably a year or 2 for me to create the product profile that I'm, taking care of. And mostly what I'm doing with the whiskey is I'm not forcing it into a particular flavor profile. I'm just nudging it into the direction that I like. So it's like, you have teenagers growing up in a household, and one of the kids might like a lot of art and a lot of music, and you might nudge them into those creative fields. And one of the kids might be much more scientific, and you might kind of nudge them into that field. So what I'm effectively doing is not forcing anything, but I'm just trying to understand. I would call it like a cask whisperer. Just trying to understand what it's trying to tell me, what I feel, and then I kind of nudge the whiskey in those directions.
So far we have a cask librarian and a cask whisperer amongst this. Beautiful. Who said the whiskey wasn't beautiful? It's incredible. I have a very specific question, again from the malt cask. It's probably a very simple one. He said, are you using French red wine casks?
Yes. So I use a lot of different. So first of all, I use red wine casks that come from France, which might be made up of American oak or French oak. I also have a lot of sherry specifically coming from French oak cask as well. And I have virgin French oak cask as well. So yes, I do use a lot of French oak because I like the seasoning nature of it. So I don't use it in full proportion, but I just use it as a seasoning to give me that aromatic nature. But yes, to answer the question, I do have red wine casks mostly from California, France, and Spain. So those are the 3 countries that I like for my red wine casks.
Beautiful. And I love how that's really fitting in with the theme of a world whiskey tasting as well, Dhavall, drawing on countries from around the world. Thank you so much.